Hey guys, Joe here, the man who went to bed early and just, oh my gosh, just slept for an incredible amount of time. It was fantastic. But I'm here to talk about UFC Fight Night, Morales versus Burns. A card that was all right. It had one fight I really enjoyed. One of my boys lost, but it was a really good fight, I thought. And but the big thing that I'm here to talk about is the main event and the big news of this week. So, enough talk. Let's get to the fights. Main event, welterweight matchup, Gilbert Burns against Michael Morales, who for me is really funny because I knew a guy, I grew up with a guy named Michael Morales. Went to school with him in like middle school and high school. Morales has just a wild finishing rate right now, 18-0, only 4 decisions, 13 KOs. I've heard people say he's jury-esque before. I don't know how I feel about that comparison. I think he's a little tighter than Jury, but in terms of the finishing rate, it isn't the same, but it at least is comparable when you consider that they're at welterweight. So, but Gilbert Burns, funny, is actually on not funny at all. Actually, is on a losing streak right now. Three straight. He dropped the number one contendership to or going into this fight, it was three straight. Number one contendership against Belal Muhammad after beating Magny and Masvidal. He got a number contendership bout for Leon Edwards. He lost by decision. Then he fought JDM. He went for a takedown and got kneed in the face in the open guard, on the open side. Something I talk about a lot. But he is the current champion, by the way. Belal Muhammad was the champion, ended up winning the belt. JDM became the champion, what, like 2 weeks ago? And then it was who was it else after that? It was Sean Brady. Sean Brady, rising contender. Sean Brady dropped a decision to him. So this was technically a big step up for Morales. Um, and he didn't slow down at all, despite the recent history with Gilbert Burns. Big step up for him. Didn't slow down at all. He did a good job just getting off the mat. Putting the pressure on the feet, doing good shot, landing good shots. Really kind of trading pretty well with Burns, who is not a guy you necessarily want to trade with, because even if he is 38 years of age, he is very powerful. Power is the last thing to go, and no problem trading with him. And the pressure on him forced him into a takedown, got up really quickly after getting taken to the mat, and which is very impressive to me. And then proceeded to put the hammer down, drop him, and get the finish for a TKO in round one. And so, big power, big, very quick fighter with his power. And question for me, and this is relates to both guys, is Gilbert Burns washed? Because that's four straight losses with two of them being finishes. I think I think it's kind of up in the air because I don't think this is a Michael Chandler, wow, you're really washed kind of way. I think this is look at who he's losing to. So JDM, Belal Muhammad, and Sean Brady. Okay. So um those three guys, funny, two of them, their biggest win isn't Gilbert Burns. Their biggest win came after Gilbert Burns, which was for two of them, Eve Edwards, and for one of them, it's Belal Muhammad. Funny enough, one of the guys on the list. So that means they're all around the top contendership. So there's three definite contenders in the division. With Sean Brady, I forgot he finished Leon Edwards. I forgot he guillotined him. I remember him beating him, but I don't remember finishing him. But so three of those guys are confirmed top contenders, and Morales is now added to that list. So either this is the last of the top contenders that are beating Gilbert Burns, and this is a guy who his ceiling is not as high as we see, or this is a a guy who does have that same potential and is just getting skyrocketed because he's been doing incredible since jumping into the UFC. I think it's a sad and interesting question that has to be considered regarding this main event. And I don't like thinking about that. I'll be honest. I don't like thinking about it. What about the rest of the card? Myron Santos put on a clinic against Sadiq Youssef for a unanimous decision. Nursultan Ruziboev beat Dustin Stoltzfus by unanimous decision. Melquizal Costa beat Juicy J Julian Erosa in the fight of the night with unanimous decision. I very much enjoyed that fight. Gabe Green got a second round rear naked choke against Mateus Camillo. Jared Gordon showed off finishing ability I wish he had against Patty. This time KOing Thiago Moises in the first round. Yadir Diwali beat Connor Matthews by rear naked choke in the first round. Luana Santos, formerly Lana Kunitskaya, beat Connor or beat Tainara Lisboa by Americana. An old finish of mine. I used to love the Americana. I used to love so from side control. Everyone always naturally tries to defend the Kimura. I saw a couple of people I used to know used to like do this to protect against the Kimura, like hold it like this to them, and it's very easy to set it up into an Americana. So love seeing a good old fashioned Americana. I think that submission is incredibly underrated personally. I feel like it's less the Kimura is more of a two arms against one strength contest, and I feel like the Americana is a little bit less, even though it really isn't. The mechanics and science of it, it isn't. But the Americana I thought was a much more awkward. So I thought me not being a very strong guy, who wasn't very good at Kimuras because of that, um, as even if you can hit the Kimura from any position, it's crazy how versatile that submission is. I used to like the Americana because even though you can hit it in only very few positions, I feel like you can do more with it. Like I could, my success rate was higher with it. Anyways, that's me ranting about how much about grappling. Maybe I could do that next week. Denise Gomez got a TKO over Elise Reed in the second round. Hyung Sung Park beat Carlos Hernandez by submission with a rear naked choke. And finally, Tisha Pennington, formerly Tisha Torres, beat Luana Pinheiro by unanimous decision to open up the card. But was there any other news this week? Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. And if it wasn't for me being not bored, I almost said bored, being busy, I would have made a reaction video to it. But I remember thinking when I had time, seeing this card going, there might not be much to talk about. So I'm going to save it for Saturday. So the big news is Islam Makhachev is or let's get to the small news. Patchy Mix, Bellator, coming over to the UFC. That's pretty exciting, right? And I don't think this is a case of Pitbull, who recently joined, who is getting old in age. Patchy Mix, I don't know his age, but I always feel like he's a lot younger. I don't remember. I think he's like 31, 32, maybe 28 even. Um, Definitely still in his prime. So that's a good addition to to the UFC. Uh, and but the big news everyone's talking about, Islam Makhachev vacates to go fight Jack Della Maddalena. I guess he was really interested in fighting the winner of Belal Muhammad and JDM, and he was more interested in fighting JDM. So he's going up to welterweight. And I think part of that is Craig Jones making fun and like he's the jujitsu coach and grappling coach for JDM. Two Aussies helping each other out. Nothing wrong with that. But Craig Jones loves to poke fun and poke. He's a big troll, Craig Jones. If you don't know, you know. Like he's a massive, massive troll, and he's been poking fun at the Dagestanis for a long time, and it's hilarious. He loves to make fun of Sambo. He's like, Sambo is what happens when I think he said something along the lines once of Sambo is what happens when a bunch of cousins get into the hot tub together and think about jiu-jitsu. And I think that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Very much enjoy Craig Jones. I think he's very fun. If you haven't seen it before, I highly recommend the sit-down interview of Craig Jones did a super fight, an intergender super fight against Gabby Garcia, and they had Hanato Laranja mediating uh, their like face-to-face interview, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And then the match itself is incredibly funny because Hanato Laranja is like on a loud mic, like coaching both fighters throughout the fight, and it's incredible. It's a very fun grappling match. A lot of showmanship, and you know what? Props to Gabby Garcia. Been like a black sheep of the jiu-jitsu scene for a while. Been kind of ridiculed a lot. Her getting the loudest pop of her career, making her like legitimately emotional, is one of the more touching moments of it. And he runs the Craig Jones Invitational, which is way better than the ADCC. Anyways, enough Craig Jonesy glazing, as the kids say. Um, I think a lot of that is, Islam wants to be like, F Craig Jones. And that I think he can beat. I'm sure he thinks in his mind he can beat JDM because this is a boxer, not a wrestler. And I think that's like, he's like, oh, this is a good second belt for my legacy. And I mean, which I kind of understand. I can understand his mindset. I don't think there's any fault in thinking that, if that is where he's coming from. But the fun part of this is Ilia Topuria now is fighting Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title. Because I think it was Diego Lopez who was like, yeah, there's no more double champs, which is wild to me because guys like, here's what's wild about that to me is Topuria is mad because he wanted that Islam fight, and and he's like, oh, Islam ducked me, and that's a little bit of the consensus. A little bit, it seems like, come on. And Islam is like, well, you ducked Diego Lopez and Volkanovski in rematches. It's really weird. It very much feels like the Spider-Man like pointing thing because they're both critiquing the other for doing the same thing in a sense, which is vacating up to go chase another belt. Islam is more so vacating because he wants to get another belt, and there's no more double champs, it sounds like, which I think is a very, very, very good thing. And Taporia is vacating because he was like, well, I want another belt too, but the big thing is I don't want to cut weight anymore, which, if that's the truth, I want to stress, if that is the truth, because I don't know, then I'm all for it. you know? I think it's definitely interesting. I think what's even more interesting is it sounds like Max, if he doesn't retire after the Dustin Poirier retirement fight later this year, then I could see Max staying at 155 permanently. And I think we could potentially have two fun rematches between Charles or Topuria with him because he did fight Charles back in the day in a very, very weird fight. Um, I mean, I think it's big news. I think this is big news. I'm very curious what you guys think about this, because for me personally, I am leaning towards. I think Topuria finishes Charles. I think is an early prediction I'm going to have, and I'm going to pick the upset here. JDM. I think he beats Islam because I think his his counter wrestling is becoming very good. I think I mean, I think the guy to look at if you want to be the bane of every wrestler ever, I think there's one guy to look at in history, and that's Jose Aldo, GOAT himself, Jose Aldo, the greatest of all time. And I think you look at his stylings throughout his prime, he fought a ton of wrestlers and just smoked all of them. The only one I think on the top of my head that he lost to was like Marab, and Marab could not take him down. And Marab had to holy home him. And Marab is a very entertaining wrestler to me. Like, that is shocking that Marab was like, I have to do the worst thing on the planet. I have to holy home somebody to beat this guy, which is crazy to me. Anyways, that's it for me. That's all the news for this week and fights for this week. I'm Joe with the INC. Apologies for the lateness. I went to bed, like I said, I went to bed very early and I just slept. So planning on waking up early today? No, I just slept for all of it. I guess I really needed it. I didn't think I was that tired. But that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching.